bind, binds, bound, have bound. Present, I bind, you bind, he, she, it binds, we bind, you bind, they bind. Duct tape binds the parts together. Past, I bound, you bound, he, she, it bound, we bound, you bound, they bound. I bound the essays before shelving them. Present perfect, have or has bound. Past perfect, had bound. Present progressive, I am binding, you are binding, he, she, it is binding, we are binding, you are binding, they are binding. We are binding the reports with staples and tape. Past progressive, I was binding, you were binding, he, she, it was binding, we were binding, you were binding, they were binding. The gears were binding against each other. Future will bind, future progressive will be binding, future perfect will have bound. Past passive, I was bound, you were bound, he, she, it was bound, we were bound, you were bound, they were bound. They were bound by their promises. Complements. Bind meaning to stick or become stuck. The pulley was binding. Bind meaning be uncomfortably tight. This dress is binding. Note the verb bind when it takes an object is often used with together. Bind with an object, wrap, cover, bandage. We bound the package with tape. The printer bound the books in the red leather. The doctor bound my ankle. Bind with an object meaning fasten together. The secretary bound the pages with a clip. Bind object meaning cause to stick together. The glue binds the fibers together. The enzyme binds the calcium ions. Bind meaning put an edge or border on. He bound the rug with cotton tape to keep the edges from raveling. Bind an object meaning morally, legally obligate or restrict. My promise binds me. His father's will binds the use of the property. Bind an object meaning cause to have an emotional attachment. Duty and honor bound the company of soldiers together. Phrasal verbs. Bind off, casting off. Be sure to bind off the scarf loosely. Bind over, hold on bail. The judge will bind the suspect over for trial. Bind up or tie up. The medics bound up the soldier's wounds. The old issues were bound up with twine. Be bound to be certain to do something. It's bound to snow this afternoon. Erin is bound to be a great lawyer someday. East Junior High is bound to win the maths contest.